Some say there's an island off the coast of Cambodia where no one asks questions, and no one comes back the same. It's not on most maps you'll find in travel guides. Koh Rong Samloem, once a forgotten outpost in the Gulf of Thailand, is now quietly drawing Americans who want to vanish from their old lives entirely. The name itself means shelter of the dragons in Khmer, though locals will tell you the dragons left long ago, replaced by something far more mysterious. People who've chosen to erase themselves from the modern world. But this isn't your typical expat story. This isn't about teaching English in Bangkok or starting a beach bar in Bali. This is something else entirely. Something darker, something more desperate. These aren't gap year adventurers or digital nomads with trust funds and backup plans. These are Americans fleeing the wreckage of lives that looked perfect from the outside, but felt like slow-motion catastrophes from within. The island sits roughly 15 miles off the coast of Sihanoukville, accessible only by a twice-weekly boat that depends entirely on weather conditions. There are no resorts here, no infrastructure designed for tourists, no Wi-Fi passwords scrawled on cafe walls, no ATMs, no convenience stores selling overpriced sunscreen to unprepared visitors. What exists instead is something that's become increasingly rare in 2025, a place where the 21st century simply doesn't exist. They come with stories that sound like modern American nightmares made flesh. Divorce settlements that would leave them broke for decades, paying alimony on income they no longer earn. Credit card debt spiraling into six figures after medical emergencies that insurance refused to cover. Careers in tech that burned them out so completely they developed panic attacks at the sight of email notifications. Small business owners crushed by regulations and rent increases, and the endless, grinding competition with Amazon algorithms. But underneath all these surface tragedies lies something deeper, the gradual realization that the life they built wasn't actually their life at all. It was a performance, a role they'd been playing for so long they'd forgotten it was just an act, complete with scripted responses to "How are you?" and carefully curated social media feeds that bore no resemblance to their actual existence. The island offers something increasingly rare in modern America: true disconnection. No fast internet, no roads. No Uber Eats or Amazon deliveries arriving within hours of ordering. No Ring doorbells recording your every movement. No algorithms predicting your next purchase before you even know you want it. No targeted ads following you across every platform, reminding you of things you looked at once in a moment of weakness. Just silence, salt air, and time. Endless, unstructured time to sit with whoever you really are underneath all the noise, all the obligations, all the digital breadcrumbs you've been leaving behind for years without realizing they were mapping your entire existence. But here's where the story gets complicated, because isolation, real isolation, comes at a cost that most Americans simply aren't prepared to pay. The island isn't a tropical paradise where mangoes fall from trees and fish jump into your boat. It's a place where modern conveniences don't just cost more, they don't exist at all. Medical emergencies on Koh Rong Samloem can take hours to address, assuming the weather cooperates and a boat is available. The nearest hospital requires a journey to the mainland that becomes impossible during monsoon season. Supplies are inconsistent and expensive when they arrive at all. The generator fails during the hottest months. The water pump breaks and stays broken until someone can source parts from Phnom Penh. The boat engine dies 20 minutes from shore with no cell service and no way to call for help except hoping another vessel passes by. Dr. Jennifer Walsh runs a medical clinic in Sihanoukville, the jumping-off point for the island. She's treated more than a dozen Americans who've come back from extended stays on remote islands, and her assessment is blunt. These aren't trust fund kids on gap years, she explains. These are people running from something specific. Debt collectors who've learned to find anyone with a social security number, ex-spouses with lawyers and private investigators, the IRS with computers that never forget and never stop calculating compound interest. But what they find out there, isolated from everything they've known, isn't what they expected. Because here's the thing about trying to disappear in the digital age: you can delete your social media accounts, close your bank accounts, leave your phone in a drawer in Phnom Penh, and board a boat to nowhere. But you can't delete yourself. You can't escape the person you become, even on an island where nobody knows your name or cares about your credit score. The psychological impact of true isolation hits differently than the fantasy version most people imagine. Without Netflix to binge, without text to answer, without meetings to attend or emails to send, Without the constant low-level anxiety of notifications demanding immediate attention, what remains isn't peace, it's confrontation. A daily reckoning with thoughts and feelings that have been pushed down, medicated away, or simply ignored for years. And yet, and this is where the story takes an unexpected turn, many of them stay. Not for the lifestyle, not for the cheap living or the pristine beaches, or the fantasy of tropical paradise that Instagram influencers have sold to a generation desperate for authentic experiences. They stay because the island reflects back who they truly are when stripped of every distraction, every excuse, every external validation they've been using to avoid looking in the mirror, without the ability to buy their way out of discomfort, without entertainment to numb difficult emotions, without social media to provide constant reassurance that their lives have meaning. They're forced to confront the person they actually are versus the person they've been pretending to be. One man, we'll call him Michael, has been living on Koh Rong Samloem for 8 months. He spoke via a crackling satellite phone from the island's only functioning communication point. His story mirrors so many others: corporate job in Denver managing IT infrastructure for a healthcare company, messy divorce that turned ugly when lawyers got involved, mounting debt from trying to maintain a lifestyle that required 2 incomes with only 1 paycheck. The gradual realization that the life he'd built wasn't actually his life at all. It was a performance he'd been giving for so long he'd forgotten he was acting. The suburban house, the leased BMW, the weekend golf games with colleagues he didn't particularly like, the carefully curated Facebook posts showing happiness that felt increasingly hollow with each passing year. "This place doesn't erase your past," he said, his voice cutting in and out through the static. "It just stops it from following you. And when that noise finally goes quiet, when there's nowhere left to run, no more distractions to chase, that's when you meet yourself, really meet yourself." For some people, that's terrifying. They get on the next boat back to the mainland and never speak of this place again. For others, it's the first honest moment they've had in decades. The island has no permanent population to speak of. A few Cambodian fishermen use it as a seasonal base during certain months. There's a caretaker who maintains a small generator and water system, more out of habit than necessity. But mostly, it's just the Americans. Living in basic wooden structures, they've built themselves from materials that wash ashore or get brought in on supply runs, growing vegetables in soil that fights them every step of the way, fishing from rocky shores when they can figure out how, reading books they brought from home until the pages fall apart from humidity and salt air. They've created something that doesn't quite fit any category our society has words for. It's not a commune. They're too individualistic for that, too damaged by modern life to trust easily in group dynamics. It's not a retreat. There's no program, no guru, no predetermined path to enlightenment or recovery. It's not even traditional off-grid living, because most of them freely admit they have no interest in homesteading or sustainable agriculture or any of the skills that might make isolation comfortable. It's something else entirely, something that might only make sense to a generation that grew up online, hyper-connected, constantly performing their lives for invisible audiences. They found a place where performance is impossible because there's no audience, where authenticity isn't a choice or a lifestyle brand. It's the only option for survival. The daily routine on the island is dictated by survival rather than schedule. Wake with the sun, because there's no electricity to waste on lights. Collect rainwater, because the well runs dry during certain seasons. Tend to whatever vegetables are growing, because the supply boat might not come for weeks. Fish not for sport, but for protein. Read not for entertainment, but to maintain connection with language and ideas beyond the immediate necessities of existence. But this story doesn't have a clean ending, because the people living it are still writing it. Some will eventually return to the mainland, carrying something back with them that didn't exist before they left. A clarity about what matters, perhaps, or simply the knowledge that they can survive without the infrastructure they once thought was essential. Others will stay until the island changes them so completely that the person who first stepped off the boat becomes just another ghost story they tell around campfires built from driftwood. The question that haunts anyone who learns about this place, and maybe it should haunt you too, is this: in a world where disappearing has become nearly impossible, where every movement is tracked by satellites and smartphones, every purchase recorded by banks and algorithms, every relationship monetized by social media platforms that know more about your desires than you do, Is vanishing to a place like Koh Rong Samloem really about running away? Or is it about finally, desperately, showing up somewhere you belong? The island is still there, hidden in plain sight off Cambodia's coast. The boats still run twice a week, weather permitting. The Americans are still arriving, still disappearing, still discovering what remains when everything else falls away. Whether that's escape or discovery, that's for you to decide. Thanks for watching. If this story resonated with you, let me know in the comments. Have you ever felt the urge to completely disappear? What would you do with total isolation? And if you want more stories about people living on the margins of our hyper-connected world, subscribe and hit the notification bell. Until next time, remember, sometimes the most radical act isn't joining something new, it's leaving everything behind.